Today we're gonna take a short jump back to 2005, a time when the internet was evolving rapidly, but for some still felt like the Wild West. MySpace was the social media platform of choice, and Facebook was just starting to become a global phenomenon. And many of us were still figuring out instant messaging and chat rooms. This was an era when online anonymity often masked dangerous intentions, and people could easily reinvent themselves behind a screen, just like it is today. The only difference is the rise in true crime shows and podcasts like ours have brought these issues out in the open. And now we're much more aware of the dangers of the internet, or at least you should be.
I'm Darlene.
And I'm Melody.
This is Hard Times and True Crimes.
So what are you drinking?
I am drinking chai tea with sugar cookie latte creamer.
Non-dairy.
Yes.
Non-dairy creamer. And I am drinking the same because you made both of them for us.
Yes, you brought some good old tea bags and it was good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
We did decaf.
Yes.
Actually, Stacy Ashworth, one of our listeners, she messaged us after our last episode when we were talking about we need some drink ideas. And she, encouraged me to try tea again. So I'm like, okay, I need to get some decaf tea and try that. I'm still very much a coffee person, but I'm trying to extend my my preferences out there a little bit.
Well, I really like that tea. I think I like chai and I like black tea, but like green tea, I just can't do it.
Hibiscus was her favorite. My boys like hibiscus.
Roxana, she makes the best, I don't know how she does it, but she pulled it from the leaves and stuff.
Oh,
or
yeah,
the flowers
she's good
or
at that.
whatever. She's awesome.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to ask her about that. So I am going to try the hibiscus, though. But okay, so that's what we're drinking tonight.
If you are sending us any fan mail, like we got one yesterday from somebody from Columbus, South Carolina, and we appreciate that so much, but we feel really bad because we can't respond. So if you're just wanting to send us some encouragement, you are welcome to send us the fan mail and we will read it and sure appreciate it. But if you want a response from us, just email us at hardtimesandtruecrimes@gmail.com.
Yes.
Also, I just want to remind you guys once again that if you want to support the podcast, you can buy us a coffee. Just go on our show notes or our website. You can do it for as cheap as $5. So we appreciate your support.
As you can tell, my voice is a little scratchy, but we really needed to record tonight. I was sick. I'm not sick now. I just sound sick. I sounded fine when I was under the weather, and as soon as I got well, I lost my voice. And so, sorry that I'm going to sound a little weird on this recording tonight.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Me too. So, it's February, and that's the time for love. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. Not everybody has a significant other on Valentine's Day. People get lonely and may be looking for love on the internet. And sometimes that's very successful. I know people that's worked for.
Me too.
But at other times, that can be downright dangerous or deadly. And you've actually done 2 episodes now about the Lonely Hearts Killers.
Mm-hmm.
So, back then, it was those letters people were sending in the mail. Well, it's not so different today. It's just different platforms, right?
Exactly.
Now we have this social media and we have texting and email and all of those great things. And the story I'm telling you today, it's not old history. It's recent history.
Okay.
So pretend we're in 2005.
All right.
Reddit is not even a thing yet. It's going to launch in 2 months from where this story takes place.
Okay, pre-Reddit. That's prehistoric.
Also, it's also pre-YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah, this was early in 2005, and YouTube didn't actually launch until December of 2005. So this is pre-YouTube and Reddit.
Wow.
It's only April in our story, and there's a gaming website called Pogo.com where people can log in and play a variety of different games that are there on that platform. They can converse with other players in chat rooms. Typically, your account will have a photo or an avatar, and you have a username that's not usually your real name because you want to protect your identity.
Right.
So that's where our story opens up. So one such player in this pogo.com chat room, he went by the online handle Marine Sniper.
Okay.
And one evening he was playing blackjack in one of the chat rooms, and he received a message from a user who went by the handle talhotblond.
Oh.
She introduced herself as an 18-year-old named Jessie, and she quickly noticed that his age was listed as 46. And so she pointed out, well, you are in the wrong room because this chat room is actually just for teens. But he quickly assured her, no, actually, I'm playing this under my dad's account. My name's Tommy, and I'm actually 18 also.
Oh, okay.
So they struck up conversation, and they started, just small talk at first. But then they started sharing like more personal information. And Tommy, he told her he lived in Buffalo, New York. He confided that his mother had died of cancer when he was just 12 years old. And since then, he had kind of been somewhat adrift in life. But now he's 18 and he wants to follow in his dad's footsteps and join the Marines. He had become jaded after some failed relationships, but he's kind of a loner, but he was starting to feel like he's ready to open up and trust some people. He even confessed, that at times he had had suicidal thoughts. She was very encouraging to him. She shared with him that she lived in Oak Hill, West Virginia with her parents and brothers. She was a lifeguard and she was kind of athletic, really into sports. And she was in her last year of high school and getting ready to graduate pretty soon. She wasn't sure what her plans after high school were yet. She just kind of was still trying to think about that.
Yeah, figuring it out.
It's hard to figure out when you're that young. So it wasn't long before they started sharing photos, and he sent her a picture of him in his uniform.
So he is a Marine.
He has already joined up.
Okay.
And he hasn't gone to boot camp yet. She sent some pictures too. She sent some bikini pictures.
Oh.
And one look told Tommy that she lived up to her handle, tall, hot blonde. She was tan. She had long blonde hair, great figure, and he felt lucky to have met her when he did. She was really just what he wanted. Their relationship was starting to kind of really blossom. Jessie told him she was proud of him for working on himself and even serving in the military.
Right.
So the more they talked, the closer they got, and they shared more photos, some various pictures of herself, some candid shots, and even some glamour shots. You remember those?
I remember those glamour shots. Yes, I do.
I just came across mine the other day. They are hilarious. Jessie even made a slideshow for Tommy set to music. She took all of her pictures and put music, and it was Aerosmith.
Oh, yes.
I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Oh, I love it.
And so I guess she was going to send him off with that because he was getting ready to go to boot camp.
Okay.
Things were definitely getting serious, and so now they're not just exchanging messages, but they are talking on the phone.
Right.
Not just in the chat room, but they still had not met in person. They did already agree that this relationship was heading for a future, but Tommy knew because he was soon leaving for boot camp, and he was going to Parris Island, South Carolina, for training.
My husband and my son both went to Parris Island.
I thought so. Even when I was
Yes.
writing this, I thought that was where they both went. So he told her, well, I'm going to be busier now, and I'm not really going to have time for chatting. I'll still try to make time to talk to you as much as possible, but it's going to be more difficult. And I guess you can understand that.
Sure.
And by this time, their calls had actually become racier.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
of course, had led to cyber sex and all of that.
Just real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
Memphis was reading some the other night when she was here. She was going through pictures and stuff, and Curtis was like, "You do not want to read any of those, or you will not think of us the same."
Did she quickly put those down?
Yes, she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's sick."
Yeah, she probably wanted to gag.
We were young though. We were 17 and
Right.
18,
So just like
19,
this,
yeah.
you could probably really relate to this story. And they were already telling each other they loved each other. So she just couldn't wait until he returned from boot camp and they could actually meet in person.
right.
But then in one conversation, Tommy told her he actually was going to be sent to a tour in Iraq.
Oh wow.
And then he knew internet access was going to be next to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he told her, we won't be able to meet until a little longer. But if you wanted to send anything like a care package or whatever, you can just go through my dad, Tom Sr., the one whose account he was under. And he said he'll be able to get them to me faster because of his military connections, because his dad was a former Marine. So that is what she started doing. Now, even though Tom Sr. was forwarding those packages, he wasn't really crazy about this online relationship. So he kind of reached the point where he's like, I'm not going to send any more messages between these two. He just, for some reason, didn't trust Jessie. And he told her, you're just going to hurt him. He's an idiot, and he's going to believe your lie and tell. And so he kind of refused to continue helping their relationship.
Okay.
So there was some tension happening in that regard. And distance can be hard on a relationship. And so Tommy started getting jealous. He was far away and he couldn't be with Jessie like he wanted to. But he began accusing her of flirting with other men in their gaming chat rooms on Pogo.
Oh, gosh.
I guess he would see her messages. He was not liking that too good. And they did argue about this. And afterwards, in order to make up and smooth things over, Jessie sent him another care package with a heart necklace. It is the kind that are split in two, so you have half of the heart and they have half of the heart.
That's sweet. I remember those.
Yeah, so that did smooth things over, and she did send a pair of her underwear, so that probably helped as well.
I'm sure.
So by December of 2005, they had now been carrying on for 8 months, and it was at Christmas, and Tommy proposed.
Mm-hmm.
And although they still had yet to meet, Jessie, she quickly accepted. So they were planning to get married as soon as he got back home from Iraq. Their communications turned to that type of discussion.
Sure.
But then in February of 2006, Jessie received a letter in the mail. Enclosed was a family photo of a family that Jessie didn't know. It was a middle-aged man, a woman, and 2 teenage girls. And the letter said, "Jessie, let me introduce you to my family. The man in the center is my husband, Tom." It went on to explain that her name was Cindy Montgomery, and the 2 girls were their 12 and 14-year-old daughters. And she said, "We don't have any son named Tommy. The young man that you're in a relationship does not exist, but you've been talking to my husband."
Oh, my gosh.
She said, "That's what's been going on this whole time, and my husband is 46. Now, the way Cindy had discovered this was that one day one of the daughters was on their home computer, and a message to Tom or Tommy popped up from Jessie on the computer, and she went and got her mom. And then, of course, Cindy realized very quickly what was going on. So she went searching for more information and found some of those letters and packages from Jessie, and, of course, a pair of the underwear that were in the packages.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine?
No, I cannot imagine.
She also went on to tell Jessie in this letter, well, she actually ended it with a warning. She said, "You are much closer to my daughter's age than mine or Tom's. He has taken advantage of you. Are you even over the age of 18? You should be more careful with who you are in a relationship with."
Whoa.
And that's good advice for anybody today.
Yes, it is.
She said, "You will only get hurt by men like him who have mastered the art of manipulation and lies. Do not trust words on a computer."
Okay, well, she wasn't taking his side then, was she?
Nope. So in reality, Tom Montgomery had enlisted in the Marines in his younger days, but that photo he had actually sent was almost 30 years old.
That is crazy.
He had never seen active combat. When he got out of the service, he and Cindy had married and started a family. But apparently, he had become bored with the marriage and had gone online looking for something else, looking for trouble.
Yeah.
Cindy had complained that he was spending more and more time online and he was ignoring her, and she would complain about it, but he just continued with his gaming and his chat room activities and was clearly addicted.
Yeah.
Now, this is a man, he volunteered with his daughter's swim club. He taught Sunday school.
Oh, my gosh.
One paper reported that he was a church deacon.
You truly never know people.
You don't. But of course, once Cindy found this information out, she wanted a divorce. And so they agreed to that. And so Tom moved down to the basement. And that was when Cindy sent that letter to Jessie, exposing him pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, Jessie was devastated. She fired off an angry message to Tom demanding, "Why would you do that to me? You have hurt me." She sent angry messages. And so they finally met up in a private chat room to discuss it. And she wanted to know, what possessed you to do this? And he didn't even have a reasonable explanation, of course. He explained that when she had pointed out that he was in that teen room,
Mm-hmm.
and he had heard of these online sting operations, he panicked. And so he lied and said, "I'm 18. And that was how he had started it. And he said he had already gotten interested in her after their conversations. And so he kind of just went with it. He did say when he realized things were getting out of hand that he was planning to kill Tommy in combat in Iraq, but he got found out before that happened.
Okay. That's weird.
Isn't it? Because, I mean, he proposed.
Yeah.
If you're going to kill him off, why propose first?
Why drag it out and make it worse for her?
Right.
What a weirdo.
Really. So at this point, Jesse cut things off with Tom. He worked as a machinist at a company called Dynabraid. And Jesse remembered that some of his coworkers were also in the game chat rooms. And she remembered one in particular. It was 22-year-old college student Brian Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
His username was Beefcake1572.
Okay.
And Jesse decided to strike up a conversation with him. And, most likely in an attempt to make Tom jealous because she knew he could read those comments and he would be. Now, Brian lived at home with his parents and his two brothers. He worked part-time for Dynabraid while he was putting himself to college. And he was an all-around good guy. But it wasn't long before Jesse told him about what Tom had done, how he had pulled the wool over her eyes. And Brian was shocked. And he was like a shoulder for Jesse to cry on. And of course, it's naturally that leads to a blossoming relationship between them two. So now Jesse begins sending Brian the photos of herself and sweet notes to him. And then they're talking and they declare their love for one another. And they start joining chat rooms where Tom hangs out and kind of harassing him for what he had done. They're telling others about him. They're saying, this is a child predator. I mean, even though she was 18, I mean, just barely, and he was 46 and married. So they're just outing him pretty much.
Right.
Brian even left printouts of some of the messages between Tom and Jesse laying around the break room at work and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And temporarily got suspended from Pogo site at one point because he had been in that teen chat room. They should have just left him off forever.
Right. Why would you let him back on?
Jesse even gave Brian her login info so that he could log in as her and send Tom mocking messages on the Pogo site.
And they worked together?
They did. So that was probably not the wisest thing to do.
No.
I mean, he is 22 years old and
right.
I can see him doing that, but still. So when his work colleagues found out about him and this 18-year-old girl, a lot of them did view him like as a child predator because he was in that teen chat room.
Right.
So the fallout came. He was shunned as a predator and it just, it didn't look good for him. Understandably so, Tom was ticked when that happened at his workplace.
Sure.
And people were shunning him. And so he felt like his life was being destroyed by this smear campaign against him. Mm-hmm. Of course, he doesn't want to take any responsibility for his...
Right. Not his fault.
No.
Everybody else's.
Right. He's a victim here. And he actually did say he felt like a victim.
A victim of his own actions.
Exactly. He thinks it's all their fault. And now that Brian and Jesse are hitting it off, they made plans that they were going to meet up.
Okay.
So keep in mind, none of these people have met. Tom and Jesse haven't met.
Okay.
Brian and Jesse haven't met. Only Brian and Tom know each other because they work together.
Okay.
So Brian was going to be taking a trip for work, and he was going to be close to West Virginia where Jesse lived. And so he decided this is a great time to swing by and meet her because I'm going to be close to that area.
Sure.
They made plans, and he started telling colleagues at work about it. And sure enough, word got back to Tom, and he was furious. He had already been made a fool of, he thought, and he was very jealous of Brian and Jesse's relationship and how they were flaunting it and taunting him. And then, in the middle of all of this, suddenly Jesse started messaging Tom again. She sent him a message on the website in the chat room and wanted to talk.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And she told him that she missed Tommy that she had fallen in love with, this alter ego, this non-existent person. She said, I felt hard for him and I'm just having a hard time getting over him. So she wants to strike back up this relationship with Tom because she misses Tommy.
Oh my gosh.
And she told him she had only really been flirting with Brian to get revenge on Tom for hurting her. When it was time for Brian to go meet her, something came up at the last minute and she backed out and said, it's not going to work. And Brian was, disappointed, but he's like, okay, maybe some other time. Now that Tom and Jesse are talking again, they decide, we're going to just try to remain friends. But you know where that's going.
Right.
Just friends is not going to work. What happened was it commenced this weird sort of setup of the two talking to each other as if Tom were still Tommy.
It's really sad because she actually was groomed.
She was. They're also back to engaging in cyber sex, but they're saying they're just friends. Tom's pretending to be Tommy and continuing this fantasy world they have going on. Since they're just friends, he tells Jesse, he's kind of insecure about it. So he tells Jesse, he'll kind of like manipulate her with stuff. He'll say, well, I'm never going to live up to what you want me to be. I'm just never going to be able to be that. And I want more than you're ever going to be able to give me. That
Yes.
feel sorry for me.
Right,
and
of course.
That kind
He's
of
the
thing.
victim.
Yes. So it's a very unhealthy relationship. And when she would speak to other men in that chat room, he would start getting jealous, and sometimes he would threaten her, send her messages, calling her like obscene names and racial slurs. And so it was very toxic, back and forth. And now Tom, he's really into this fantasy world, so he's kind of losing touch with reality. He began stalking her on MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Yes, I do. Those were the days.
Yeah. He actually told Jesse in some of those chats, he said he hated Brian with a passion. He's like, for 10 cents, I would eliminate him.
My gosh.
And he also told her that he had seriously considered shooting Brian after he had been humiliated at work like that. But for some reason, Jesse did not think it was important enough to contact police about those threatening words.
Yeah.
She did promise Tom, I'm not ever going to speak to Brian again. As this weird, strange relationship pattern continues, and Jesse's still talking to other men online, and Tom's threatening her, finally one time she tells him, my mom wants to speak with you. And her mom's name was Mary Schuyler. So her mom contacted Tom, and she demanded, you need to leave her alone. And he agreed. And he said, well, you need to keep her from messaging me then and stringing me along.
Because, of course, it's all her fault.
Right. 2 weeks went by. And guess what? Jesse sent him another message. And he told her, you're not supposed to be talking to me. And she's like, well, Mom, my mom will never know. So now she's kind of keeping this going too.
Yes, she is.
So this back and forth continued until September 2006. Tom was stalking her page one day. He saw that Brian Barrett was one of her friends on MySpace. And he was livid because she had told him she wasn't talking to him anymore. So he's fussing at her, and she's like, no, we just talked. There's nothing else to it. Tom didn't buy it. He became obsessed with not letting the two of them get back together. So on September 13th, Jesse sent Tom this message. I'm asking you to love me enough to let me go. I'm like, well, at one time he did try to let her go, and she started it back up. But now she's saying, let me go. And at 1:36 in the morning, he replied, well, run to Brian. He's waiting for you. And then he messaged Brian and told him, you can have her. I'm done. On Sunday, September 17th, Brian's family returned home from a weekend camping trip, and Brian was nowhere around. It was clear that their cats had not been fed in a while.
Oh, gosh.
And that was not like Brian. So they're, looking for him, trying to find where Brian may be. And after an hour of looking, a police officer pulls up in their driveway, knocks on their door, and they knew that whatever he had to say to them was just not going to be good.
Oh, no.
So what had happened on Friday night, September 15th, 2 days before, Brian had finished his shift at Dynabraid and left for home. And as he got in his truck, he kind of parked at a certain place in the parking lot, his spot. As he got in his truck, 3 shots rang out. A bullet went into his arm and one into his neck. And he was shot 3 times, but I don't know where that third bullet landed, but it did kill him. He was shot with a .30 caliber rifle. But where he parked was like in kind of like the back part of the lot, more like secluded, and no one had seen this happen. Brian was dead, but he was not found until Sunday morning.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is terrible. A co-worker, I don't know if it was a security guard or not, but he was making rounds and came up on Brian's truck and saw him in it. Oh, and when he saw the truck there, he knew that wasn't a time when Brian was usually at work, so that's what made him go over and look.
Okay.
When the investigation started, it pretty quickly turned up witnesses who had heard the shots and said they had seen someone lurking in the area earlier that evening in a ski mask and camo. And so that helped the investigators nail down an approximate time of death. There were no shell casings left on the ground anywhere near the truck. They did find a peach pit lying on the ground, and that later turns out to be a clue.
Okay.
But from what they could tell, this looked very much like a sniper-style shooting. Also, pretty quickly, or pretty early on, Brian's co-workers began informing the authorities of this love triangle that had been going on between Brian and Jesse and Tom. And they started telling that Tom had made some recent disturbing comments. He was always bragging that he was like the sniper in the Marines. Oh. And actually, he had trained for something like that, but he had never seen any real combat in that area.
Okay.
But he kind of did inflate his sense of self with that and bragged on himself at work that he had all this training and that kind of thing.
You know that type of guy.
Yes. For instance, Tom had bragged once that if he ever killed anyone, he would use an M1A1. I don't know what that is.
Me either.
But
is that why he was...
Apparently it was a military rifle.
Okay.
And he said, I wouldn't be stupid enough to leave shell casings lying around.
Ah, what an idiot.
Yeah, but he thinks he's smart.
Right.
So there were no casings, and the bullets in Brian's body did match that type of rifle.
Okay, what a moron. Seriously.
Others had pointed out that he had been inquiring recently about what time Brian's shift ended, normally. And of course, all that taunting that Jesse and Brian had done to Tom at his place of work was exposed. So it's painting a picture for these investigators of what happened. And now officers think, well, then this Jesse may be in danger.
Yeah.
They find her number in Brian's phone, and they call her, and they tell her that Brian is dead, and Tom may be coming for her. So she admits to the love triangle. She admitted that Tom's behavior had been escalating, and she says she was scared of him.
Okay.
Now, I don't know why she didn't report that.
Right.
If she's afraid of him and he has made threats, why would she not have said something?
Right. Or, yeah.
She told him that Tom had called her that Friday night and screamed obscenities at her over the phone and then sent her a message that said, "You waiting for your boyfriend?"
Were they even talking, her and this guy, Jesse, still?
She said they were not.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay.
So officers in New York, Buffalo, where they were at, they contacted the officers in West Virginia, where Jesse lived, and they said Tom could be on his way there. We're not sure because they had not seen him or found him. And so those officers in that town, they went to the address that Jesse had given during that phone call when they did the well check on her. Mm-hmm. And this short, middle-aged woman with a bob haircut answered the door and identified herself as Mary Schuyler.
Okay.
Remember that name?
Yes.
Her mom. They said, "Hey, can we speak with your daughter, Jessie?" And she's like, "Well, she's not home. She's away at college."
Oh my gosh. Was she the person?
Keep listening.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
So the West Virginia officers informed the New York officers what she had told them. And they were confused because they had just spoken to Jessie a few hours before and she told them that she was at home.
This is insane.
And they said the voice on the other end of the line sounded like a young teenage girl. Those officers go back out to her address and they ask Mary, "Has your daughter been home recently?" She said, "No, and I don't have a phone number to reach her either." And that was weird. Yeah. Why wouldn't you have your daughter's number? So they said, "Well, it's imperative we speak with her. She might be in danger." And Mary was visibly nervous. And the officers pressed a little more. And Mary started crying and confessed that she was Jessie.
This is the craziest story ever.
It really is.
Oh my gosh.
She had been using her daughter's name and likeness on the internet this whole time.
She used her daughter's pictures?
She did. Lots of them.
Like her
bikini pictures.
Oh my God.
Pictures that she had taken when her daughter didn't even know she was taking them, and video.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but
can you imagine?
No.
Earlier, when you thought he was grooming her, she wasn't really. I mean, he thought he was grooming an 18-year-old. That was a plot twist, right?
That was a crazy plot twist.
Officers were just as surprised as you are right now. But like I said, they said she had sounded like a teen when they spoke to her. They were shocked. After all that trickery that Tom had pulled and her being mad at him, remember how mad she was?
And her talking to a 22-year-old.
The whole time. She thought she was talking to, yeah.
And then that poor boy gets shot.
Yes.
Over a middle-aged woman.
Yep. Yep. And the catfish now has been catfished.
Yes.
I mean, she's a middle-aged 40-something-year-old woman. And she had been doing the same ruse that Tom had been doing and had kept that triangle going like well after Tom's identity had been discovered. So like, what are the chances?
Are crazy.
They really are. What are the chances that two people who are on their catfishing run into each other?
That is insane.
Crazy. I mean, straight up crazy.
But wait a second. So she thought she was
talking to an 18-year-old boy.
Oh my gracious.
And he thought he was talking to an 18-year-old girl.
Those two they need to be locked up in
together.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely. So here was her story. Now that she's crying and upset that she's been caught.
Oh, of course.
She said she had inadvertently signed up for this premium account on Pogo, and then she realized she was under her daughter's name, and it put her in a teen chat room. And she only started talking to Tommy because he seemed troubled. And she couldn't explain why she had gone as far as to send him her daughter's bikini pictures.
Who? I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And engaged in cybersex. Mm-hmm. And agreed to marry him.
What a
Remember?
Weirdo. Yes.
Yeah. I can only imagine how betrayed her daughter must have felt. She and Tom had been conversing for 1.5 years. Now, also, Mary was still married at this time to her husband. She said she was happily married. So what compelled her to send hundreds of images of her 18-year-old daughter to these men? And it wasn't just Tom and Brian. She actually had sent those to other men as well.
Oh my gosh.
She had been talking to several.
I bet her husband and daughter were just mortified.
I cannot even imagine. And I will tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But she had filmed some video of her daughter without her consent and sent that to several individuals in private messages. I mean, that's sick.
That's sick. I hope she gets charged.
Keep listening.
Okay.
So even Jessie's MySpace account wasn't hers. It was a whole fake maintained by Mary the whole time.
I wonder how, I mean, I guess things are different now, but you wonder how she was able to do that and keep it hidden from her daughter.
I know. The real Jessie actually only found out when her friends told her they were seeing like stuff in the news about her mom. So she Googled her mom's name and was horrified when she realized her identity had been stolen and her photos were all over the internet.
That's so sad.
Now, she further justified her actions by saying that after she found out who Tommy really was, she became concerned that he may be talking to other young women online.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so she kept up the ruse to keep him talking to her to protect other girls.
Please.
Right. And she said she had never had feelings for Brian Barrett. So she was just stringing him along the whole time, I guess probably to make Tom jealous.
Oh my gosh.
And it worked. And unfortunately, this young man lost his life over those stupid games.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling. They did get her computer and they documented hundreds of pages of communication between Jessie and Tom, or Mary and Tom. And they saw where all those threats and fantasies and all of that stuff that she had not reported. Well, what's going on while these officers are talking to Mary and finding this out? Tom actually ended up showing up for his shift at work. Like nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Officers came to his work and asked to speak to him because I guess the bosses probably called and said, hey, he's here.
Sure.
So he agreed and he's like, well, I need to go to my car and get my lunch first. He said he had brought some peaches and he didn't want them in the car too long. They might spoil.
Okay.
You remember that peach pit?
Yes.
They questioned him. Tom adamantly denied any involvement, of course. He said he had gone out to eat at a local place after work and he had gotten home before 10 and he was there with his wife and kids at the time that happened. However, when his estranged wife was questioned, she refuted every bit of that. She said no, he got home later than that, at least a half an hour later than what he claimed. Because remember, he was living in the basement.
Right.
And cell phone records showed was near Dinah Braid at that time. They could not find the gun that matched the one used to kill Brian, but these were good investigators. They looked at some family photo albums, and in one of those albums was a picture of Tom's wife, Cindy, and behind her there was a gun cabinet in the background, and that gun was in that cabinet in the background.
Those were good investigators. Just to be able to have an eye for that.
Right? And then that danged peach pit came back with Tom's DNA on it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yep. So Tom was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Authorities later found a note in Tom's handwriting on Dinah Braid's stationery that said, on January 2nd, 2006, Tom Montgomery, 46 years old, ceases to exist and is replaced by an 18-year-old battle-scarred Marine. He is moving to West Virginia to be with the love of his life. This note went on to describe his creation of Tommy, a black belt in karate, with $2.5 million in the bank, and he looked like a red-headed Harrison Ford.
That is just bizarre.
He clearly was in fantasy world. By that time, just, I don't know, delusional. So he created another identity for himself. And
What a weirdo.
Yeah. You can only imagine Tom's surprise when police sat him down and told him who Jesse really was.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I wish I could just see his face.
So Tom was shocked.
Bless his heart.
Probably just as shocked as Mary had been when Tom's wife Cindy had exposed his true identity.
Right. Because clearly they're both predators.
Yes.
Child predators.
Yes. And liars and...
Yes.
Yeah. And they're both married.
Mm-mm.
I mean, Tom pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter. And well, then he changed his mind and he tried to withdraw his plea. And he wanted to stand trial for the second-degree murder charges.
Why did he not get first degree since it was clearly premeditated?
I don't know, because they did have messages and stuff showing those threats and everything. But, so it was second-degree murder charges that he wanted to stand trial for.
Yeah.
But the judge said, you have already admitted your guilt by taking the first plea. And he said, no, he didn't allow him to withdraw that.
Okay.
So at the sentencing hearing, the father of Brian Barrett read a letter to the judge describing his son as a student leader at Niagara County Community College, and he asked her to assign the maximum penalty. He said, quote, I don't wish that evil should ever walk the streets again and traumatize another family. And actually, I just want to stop here and read Brian's obituary.
Okay.
Because we never want to forget the victims.
Right.
It says, Brian M. Barrett, athlete, coach. Brian Barrett of Lockport, an accomplished athlete and Buffalo State College student who wanted to be a teacher, died Sunday, the victim of a homicide. He was 22. Mr. Barrett was a graduate of Star Point High School, where he played baseball and football. A third baseman, he had been named most valuable player in his midget A League, and this summer served as a coach in the Pendleton Little League. He also worked with his father as an assistant coach for Lockport soccer. An Erie Community College graduate, Mr. Barrett was studying technology instruction at Buffalo State. Family members said he wanted to be an industrial arts teacher. And it goes on to tell who he was survived by. But how sad that
this is a whole wonderful life just snuffed out.
Yes, because of two
idiots.
Yes.
If you're in your middle age, like, go home to your husband or wife and you're not 18 anymore.
Right. Like, I don't know what kind of midlife crisis you're having, but grow up.
Yes.
Because Mary was, like, I guess, a witness. She had to fly out for that sentencing hearing of Tom. It was not until then that she even told her husband what she had done.
What?
I don't know how she kept that from him.
She must be a narcissist.
She's got to be. She told her husband she had done something bad. Then she admitted she had chatted online with two men who worked together, and one had gotten jealous and killed the other. She only admitted to the chats and said that it was not romantic in nature. It was just online gaming chat. But her husband later said in an interview she would never admit to anything as long as she thought she could get away with it. The judge described it as a totally senseless killing, a love triangle between three people who did not even know each other and two that didn't even exist. And he sentenced Thomas Montgomery to 20 years in prison. Now, that was in 2007. In 2009, Tom sat for an interview in a documentary about this case. And in that documentary, he did not one time express remorse.
Really?
He placed responsibility for his problems on seeking solace online and his focus on his relationship with Jesse. And he basically painted himself as the victim.
Poor fella, right?
Yeah.
The other guy lost his life, but poor Tom.
But I've been, deceived.
Was he mad at her?
Yeah. The nerve.
It's so funny to me.
Yeah, crazy people. So Mary, she spoke on a documentary, but she refused to be on camera, but she did speak. And her explanation was that she was bored when her kids grew up, and so she was seeking company online. But she stuck to her story, and then she voiced her intention to write a book about the dangers of the internet.
Oh, my gracious.
Does that not just make you gag? At the time, it was reported that she had never apologized to her daughter for using those pictures or acknowledged any wrongdoing on her part.
Well, I hope her husband divorced her.
He did.
Good.
And her daughter cut off ties with her as well.
Good.
Mary was never charged with anything
Are you serious?
because technically she had never committed a crime.
Oh, because he was 18.
Right.
But
she had
the first guy
lied.
she thought she was talking to was 18.
But she had lied, but that's not a crime that you could be charged
The
with.
only thing is if her daughter would have took up charges on her.
I know. I think somebody should have.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a minute, and then I'll tell you what happens with Tom.
Okay.
I mean, I think she should be charged just for the fact that she didn't report those threats and those things that he was saying.
Definitely.
So she's just almost the main responsibility here, honestly.
Yeah.
One report said that Tom had even texted her that Friday night after the shooting and said, "Your boyfriend was easy to take care of."
Are you serious?
And I am serious. And yet she did not report that. And also, let me point out, I mean, I'm not blaming the coworkers, but they knew he had been making threats to him. I wish one of them would have spoken up. I do think there's a good lesson in there for all of us.
Sure.
Let's don't take things lightly, take it serious. And especially if it's an ongoing thing, you may want to report that. That could have saved his life.
It's easy. I think all of us sometimes tend to minimize things. And until it's too late,
Right.
often you don't know, that was serious.
Yeah, I know. I tend to do that.
I do too. Because you feel dumb. You're like, oh, I'm just overreacting, or they're just blowing off steam.
Exactly. You don't think that's really going to happen in this situation. Yeah.
Gosh, that's so sad.
So very sad. According to online records, Tom Montgomery was released on parole on January 11th, 2024. So almost a year ago, a little over a year ago, at age 65.
And how old was he when he went in?
40, I think he was 48.
Okay. He didn't serve long enough for taking a life, I'll tell you that.
No, not nearly long enough. While both Tom and Mary consider themselves victims, the real victims obviously are Brian, but his family, the real Jesse,
Yes.
Tom's wife, and his daughters.
Yes.
Remember, one of his
How
daughters.
humiliating.
Can you imagine? And one of his daughters was the one who even found out to begin with. I mean, so many innocent people affected by these liars playing this dangerous game.
Because they're bored.
Yeah. Or having some kind of a crisis or missing their glory days or whatever. If you're in the dating world and looking for love this Valentine's Day, just, be careful who you trust out there. You just never know.
Those were some hard times.
They sure were.
Now, there certainly is plenty of bad stuff on the internet, especially with social media. That's why over 7 years ago, I deleted every single bit of it. That's right, ladies. There'll be no Facebook stalking me. I have absolutely zero social media footprint. But there's plenty of good on the internet too, like Hard Times and True Crimes, the only true crime podcast on the internet called Hard Times and True Crimes. How many folks had nothing to do and nowhere to go until they found Hard Times and True Crimes? And now they've got plenty to do, like downloading every episode, liking, subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, buying the girls a coffee. So you make sure you tell everybody you know, even if they're up to no good on the internet, to check us out. Till next time, goodbye.